Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of F1. This movie is directed by Joseph Kosinski, who previously directed Top Gun Maverick and Tron Legacy. This movie stars Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, and Javier Bardem. Now, the plot of this movie is Brad Pitt plays Sonny Hayes, a retired racer who was inches away from glory, and then some unforeseen circumstances took that away from him. And so he's approached by his old buddy Ruben, played by Javier Bardem, to join Ruben's current racing team, Apex PG. And at first, Sonny's a little hesitant, but then he decides to not only help his friend out, but also seeks to, get that glory and that redemption that was stolen away from him years ago. Now, when the trailer for this movie first came out, I was like, all right, I'm on board because this looks intense, it looks fast-paced, and I really like driving and racing movies such as Rush or Ford v Ferrari because those have not only captivating, entertaining stories, but also the racing is real. You're on the edge of your seat type feeling to those movies. So I saw F1, and the driving was intense and fast-paced and white-knuckle. But, kind of like Top Gun Maverick, that was the best part of this movie. Now, let me start with the acting in this movie. Brad Pitt as Sonny Hayes, he was okay. Brad Pitt's kind of entered this part in his career, it seems like, where Brad Pitt knows he's Brad Pitt. And so, just like in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the character of Sonny Hayes here just plays it off a little too cool. Like, he's the older, retired guy who knows a thing or two, and he's like super nice, and that's his character. There's only a couple moments where he gets mad or flustered because, he's at that point in his life where not a whole lot matters to him. There's certain things that, he holds dear, and the movie does a point to get those across, and that's what he cares about. But it's like when things happen, he's just very like, it's okay, man, we'll just try it again. Like, I know it's not a good impression of him, but you know how Brad Pitt acts, where, he's very just laid back and chill about things. I often think about his small role in True Romance as a stoner on the couch all day. That's kind of that's the vibe Brad Pitt gives in this and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where, he doesn't care about it. Not that there isn't any passion behind it. It's just he comes off as very carefree and just cool with everything he does in this movie. Javier Bardem as his old friend and now boss. He's like the manager of the team. He does a good job. I wouldn't say it's great. Because he's really only in certain scenes when things go wrong. You have that role of the guy that's in charge of the team that likes to throw things or have the temper tantrum whenever things go bad and when they lose money, etc., stuff like that. And then you have Damson Idris as like the young rookie that's like the number 2 on the team. He was okay. They pit this movie as, him and Brad Pitt are going to clash and be rivals and then eventually have like this mutual understanding of how their methods are different and yet they both want to win kind of thing. He was fine. He plays that character just exactly how you thought it would be. Just this cocky young kid that doesn't like to lose, especially to the old guy. There's a moment and something happens with the character that the film tries to make you empathize with, but then when that, emotion is supposed to be evoked, the character is right back in the movie just doing the same thing he did before, and he doesn't really change. And then there's a moment in the third act, I'll just say it could have been done differently. There is a saying, and there's an unspoken rule in wrestling, professional wrestling, about, when older people are on the way out, there's kind of a responsibility and something they're expected to do. And you think the film's going to do that here, but then it doesn't. And it's like, then what's the point of bringing this old guy in to train the new young up-and-comer? And so this movie also has different characters in their pit crew. characters that, some notable actors and actresses, some are not. And you would think that, like a bunch of other wrestling movies, that, the pit crew would become part of the characters in the movie, that they'd be played by certain actors and they'd all contribute something to the team. You have the manager, you have the head of the pit crew, you have the people in the pit crew, you have the announcers, you've got the owners of the team. All these different characters usually play a part in the story. Well, the pit crew is here, and we see a lot of them, but unfortunately, they're not really used. The head of the pit crew is played by Alfie. Oh, I'm forgetting his name, but he played the android in Alien Romulus. And here he's in this movie, and you'd think he'd play a big role because he's an up-and-coming actor. Nah, not really. And then you have a young pit crew girl named Callie something, young blonde girl who, changes the tires, and she has this subplot where she's really down on herself, and Brad Pitt tries to encourage her to, grow a spine and be better and don't be so hard, but that storyline doesn't go anywhere. You have a member of the crew played by Carrie Condon, who sounds so much like WWE wrestler Becky Lynch, and if her voice sounds familiar, it's because she played Friday, Tony Stark's new AI in the Marvel movies. She's like a love interest in this movie. She's cute. She's fine. And then you have Tobias Menzies, who played, what's his name? He's an Outlander. He's also in Game of Thrones. He played Catelyn Stark's brother. Oh man, I'm forgetting his name. But anyways, he's like the owner of the team, the head guy. He's okay. He plays that kind of role just how you think he would, where, they're not the nicest guys in the world. And then one thing this movie did that's really weird is, so Brad Pitt, tries to join this team, and he tries, his first couple races, and things go wrong. And instead of just him being this legend that, has the street smarts and knows what he's doing and, can guide the team in a certain direction, they go this route where, all these accidents will happen. And instead of him, shrugging it off, being like, all right, okay, I got it this time, and getting serious about it and really helping the team out, he's just like, oh, well, guess I'm a little rusty. I'll do better next time. And they're all like, he's this legend that knows what he's doing. And it's like his genius doesn't come out until the end, when they all figure out, oh, he's doing this and this and this on purpose. But still, it doesn't really make for an entertaining story. It just kind of comes off as like this older guy that's a little too rusty and probably shouldn't be behind the wheel. This movie also does an interesting thing where with a race, with any sport, you're going to have like commentators, part of the team, part of the experience, part of that journey or adventure with your main characters. The Rocky movies, Dodgeball, what have you. Commentators here, one, they're never shown. Two, they don't commentate on the race as a whole. They don't commentate on, the drivers passing one another and doing this, doing that. They don't even commentate on Brad Pitt's character. They narrate what he does. This movie feels so much like an anime where the commentators are narrating, very quickly by the way, what Sonny Hayes is doing behind the wheel. Like they're in his head almost. It's odd. Also, this movie kind of reminded me of Speed Racer in some instances. Now, I'm not going to say this is better than Speed Racer, because anything's better than that movie. But there's a lot of quick cuts, and there's a lot of lines of dialogue where it's like, if this was an anime format, this would work very well. Because there's a couple scenes where it's like, am I watching an anime, just live action? Because that's the IQ level that I feel like went into this part of the movie. Like there's a scene, for example, where the commentators are like, oh no, they need a car. Then it cuts to Javier Bardem, and he's like, we have the driver. Just a lot of silly things. So the subplots, some of them are wrapped up and done neatly. Others are like, well, what happened to this character that really needs, that attention? And it just also reminded me a lot of the movie called Driven with Sylvester Stallone, where you have an older racer come in, try to help the young kid, they butt heads, but then eventually, things end well. And it's also Formula One. But this movie's all about the racing. And that's what makes this movie worthwhile. That and the pretty good soundtrack. Half of it done by Hans Zimmer. The other half is just, known songs that, amp up the emotion of the movie. And some of them go really well. Like the opening of this movie works because of this soundtrack. And that's the best part of this movie. It's the soundtrack and the intensity and the excitement of the driving. The story is not good, but, when you have Brad Pitt in a movie that looks this clean, this nice, like a, just a car commercial, what do you expect? So because of that, I'm going to give F1 a C. And if you have a theater that has assigned seating, make sure you sit seat F1. Till next time, guys.